One of the core ideas with Course Catalyst is the universal contact. Basically, the contact information somebody gives you when they sign up for one of your products. This is the way you reach this person. It's their contact information, but it's also their account. And because of that, there's no separation between someone's contact information and their account, aka access to your platform. So this is referring to somebody who signs up for one of your products or lead magnets. And a lead magnet is just a type of product, usually a free thing to get people in your list. So what I did not want to have is a split where we have contacts for accounts and then contacts for marketing, which is a really common structure. So basically you'll have some platform to deliver courses or products to the customer. And for that, they'll have a dedicated account. And then you'll have a separate list for marketing, which would be your email newsletter or any way of getting a hold of these people. So how does Course Catalyst bring these ideas together for a much simpler contact system? Well, it starts from the beginning. Course Catalyst was designed with this idea in mind. It's not like we created a course platform and then added marketing stuff in after and it's kind of sloppy. And then technically, for those of you who are interested, there is something that makes this very convenient and easy for the end user. So we use passwordless auth, and this is specifically for anybody in your contact list. If they want to access information, they do not need their password. As an instructor or a coach on Course Catalyst, you will have a password and a little bit of a different authentication system for extra security. We can get into the details of that another time. But for the delivery of your products, it's a passwordless auth system. So you only need the contact information. For example, Caleb at calebcurry.com. This is my contact information, but it's also my account. There's no password associated with it, so there's no second account creation step, and we don't have a split where we have, oh, here are our accounts, and here is our newsletter list. We don't have that idea because of the way I architected the authentication system in Course Catalyst. So if we have an email, I can just access the content, no password required. This makes for a beautiful transition from another platform because any existing emails you have can immediately gain access to the platform. Plus, obviously, I import any history with their products and transactions and all of that, and they don't have to set a password. So from their perspective, they just put in their email and then they get a code and log in. For all they know, it's on the same platform. So you don't have to do this obnoxious thing where you send to your whole newsletter, hey, I'm moving platforms. I need you to go create an account on this other platform and all this stuff. So passwordless auth has some ups and downs, but here are some of the major benefits. One, they don't have to remember a password, a common friction point. You buy a course. We don't want to have them create the password before buying the course. So they give their credit card info and then they have issues creating the account or logging in. So now they're a frustrated customer. So by removing the password altogether, it reduces that friction. That's the first major benefit. So it reduces the friction of the purchase itself and reduces the chance of any kind of technical issues where they can't access their account and they have to figure out your contact email to get a hold of you. On other platforms, I've had that happen multiple times. Very commonly, people would forget their password or type it in wrong or something, and I would have to send them an email for them to reset their password. Kind of a pain for me and for the customer. The next major thing, it's self-verifying. So we don't have to worry about the idea of verified and unverified emails. Everybody who accesses the platform is a verified email. This drastically simplifies many of the complexities you're going to run into if you're ever doing email marketing. So a common pattern without the universal contact and the passwordless auth would be you have some lead magnet, they put in their contact info, then that info is sent to their email, and then when they click that email, the email becomes verified. And this works, that's how I've done it for a number of years, but the flow is a little bit different with the self-verifying structure. Basically, you would have a lead magnet. They would put in their info, their email. In their email, they would get a 6-digit code. And that's what they put in the form, which is the lead magnet itself. Once they put in that 6-digit code, well, we know they have access to their email. So if they get through that input, their email is verified. And then all we do is delete that modal for them to put in their 6-digit code, and they have access to the content. Now you could send them an email with the link if they want to access it later, but the problem is if you're doing that with a bunch of different things, people have to go dig through their inbox. The beauty in this structure, when you put in that initial email, it's effectively creating you an account, and that account is used to access everything within the platform. So they can just go to this arrow that says back to library. And when they do that, that's going to bring them to a page, and it will have everything that they've ever gotten from you. So it's nice and organized. They don't have to go dig through their email trying to find a bunch of stuff. And on top of this, which is less of a concern if you're just running one site, but as more and more people create content, courses, and products on Course Catalyst, that email might be used across multiple different tenants, different coaches, and instructors. So if I set up this library, and then let's say you go and create another library with some useful stuff, well, they don't have to remember the password for two different sites. They're both powered by Course Catalyst, and it's all tied back to that universal email that acts as their contact information and their access now not only to a single instance of Course Catalyst, but actually multiple all through that same email. But what I'm not doing is mixing these libraries, so it's still completely separate. You have separate websites. It's a completely separate instance. So it's not like a Udemy or other course platform where you have one account you log into and you see all of the different instructors and all the different courses. No, because I wanted something people could build their business on, and I think having your own site with your own identity and your own library is a much better structure for building your business. But it just has that extra benefit of them being able to go to other instances and use the same contact structure. So if you ever end up having two instances of Course Catalyst, the people can access the information using the same email account. Very simple, no having to remember any passwords. Or I could create a mobile app and you just log in once with your email and you can see everything from all of the Course Catalyst products. So whatever you've joined across any of the Course Catalyst instances, you could access all within a single place. So that's a nice little bonus as well. Now this idea adjusts some of the ways you have to think about things. So when you're working with an email system, you often think of cold subscribers, and cold subscribers are bad. We want to get rid of them or re-engage them. So you might have warm contacts and then you have cold contacts. And basically we'll have some sequences to do one of two things, either purge or re-engage. We try to get them to re-engage, but if not, we kick them out of the list. And that's how we keep a fresh list. Similar idea with contacts in Course Catalyst with a couple of differences. The big one being we don't want to purge old accounts. Because their contact info is their account, if you sell them something or they get a free lead magnet and a year down the road they try to access that and they can't because they're no longer in your contacts, that's bad. So instead of warm and cold, I like to call this active and inactive, because any account activity can re-engage that person. We know they're active, they are a user, they're constantly going through their email to access the platform. So anytime they log in or any other important triggers, it can reset their activity so we know they are freshly active. This avoids the problem of drift between accounts on a course platform and emails on a newsletter platform. So for example, let's say I sell product A to John, and when he does that, I get him on my newsletter, and John is continually working in this course, learning, doing things, engaging with this material, but he doesn't check his email all that often. And then what happens is this email goes cold, right? We go through this cold sequence. We then decide, hey, he's not re-engaging with the content and he's purged from the list. Well, now we have some super awesome sale going on for B, but we have no real way to engage with John and tell him that we have this sale going on. He's left our list, he was purged from the list, and the activity on the course platform does not show up as activity in his email account because these are separate platforms. This might be a course platform, and this might be an email platform. So if we could make these the same thing, what we could do is we can know if somebody is active in their email or on the platform, and either one of those will re-engage their account. So we have active contacts instead of warm and cold leads. And basically, if John engaged in one of your products with Course Catalyst, that's going to reset his timer, and he's not going to ever hit that inactive or cold state. So when we have that new product out, we know he is a customer because he's been active on the platform, and our emails will be delivered to him. We can sell them both ways, on the platform and through email. But we don't want to be sending emails to a bunch of inactive people. So what I would do is I would split this list here, and the active members get your broadcasts, and then inactive members will basically be continually pulled back into active by offering them things to get on the platform, or asking them if they're still active to re-engage, clicking a link, whatever it might be. Anything we can do to bring them back into the active side of the contact list. Very similar to this idea of re-engaging with a cold sequence. It's just now tied to their account. Another good benefit with this is if we are using passwordless auth and they're always using a 6-digit code from their email, well, they're going to recognize the emails that come from you. They're going to regularly open those. They're not going to just leave those in spam if they happened to go to spam. So basically, the deliverability of your emails to this contact is going to be much higher. Your emails are constantly being sent to that person for them to then engage with stuff on your platform. Now, one of the big concerns is, oh, I'm gonna have to go get this code every single time I log in. Well, no, not necessarily, because they would have an extended time on the platform, so they could come back and they would still be logged in. It's just whenever they log out, the way they log back in is to grab that code, which re-engages their account and refreshes their active state back to 0, so they're the farthest away from inactive as possible. A final benefit of this has to do with conversions. So a typical registration process is often 2 steps to increase conversions. So, for example, we get their email. This is basically a conversion step. Let's say they fill in the email. It's then brought to a page to complete your account. If they need to fill in any custom information, sometimes it's split up into 2 stages. So basically we can get their email as easily as possible, and then they can fill in any details after we get their email. And then somewhere along this way, they're going to have to verify the email. So what you'll often see is you fill in your email, you verify, click a link, and then you'll finish your account. So you might set a password, put in any extra details. You can radically simplify this if a couple of conditions are met. If you can reduce the total amount of information you need from the contact, then you may not need this finish account structure. It's super common though with traditional authentication systems because we want to make sure their email is valid before they go through and completing their account. So we don't have ghost accounts that are for fake email addresses or just bots. We want everybody in our system to be valid. So it's very common to see that forced verification here. Now, obviously, there's variations in this. Some people will give you access, but then they'll say, you need to verify your account, and a bunch of stuff like that. But I like the idea of getting everybody verified up front, so everybody in the system we know is valid, and we don't have bad contacts diluting our list or reducing our open rates or hurting deliverability. Those are all bad things, so everybody who gets in the system we want to be legit. That's one thing that works very nicely with passwordless auth. Basically, they just grab the code and put it in, and when they do that, we know their account is verified. Since we know they have access to their email, we don't have to have them click a link, which I hate for a couple of reasons. When they click the link, it will open the page, but if they're not on the same system, such as using on their phone, it opens it on a different device, which disrupts the registration flow. And if you're doing it on the same device, that's better, but sometimes they might not have access to their email right away, so they have to go log in. That's why I think the 6-digit code is best, because you can just grab the code from your phone and then type it in on a desktop, and there's no disconnect there. The other thing you can do, since we're trying to keep this as simple as possible, in theory, we want to be able to finish the account setup immediately so we don't have to have 2 steps in the account creation process. So in order for that to work, all required information must be collected up front. So what information do we need? Well, I would say, obviously, we could just do email, but there's some downsides to that, because if you have any kind of engagement on the platform and you want them to be able to make posts or whatever it might be, they're only going to have their email associated with their account, which I'd say leads to a bad user experience. So really, they need at least a name or a username. So what I do is I have the form be the person's name and email. So all I need to complete a registration is name plus email. Because name is super valuable for a couple of reasons. If we later do advanced contacting for this person, we have their name, so we are informed. And if they engage on the platform or they're integrating with some other platform, we have their name if that's needed. So for example, if we have a community on Slack, we can easily see which account is whose based off of their name. So not having names for anybody can be a frustrating experience. So I would say you should always get the name for people, and it helps with email if you want to use their name in that email. Some people think that can give a better experience. So if you don't have that information, it's going to hurt you a little bit. And generally, I just think getting the name and email up front is ideal. If that's all we need, then all we do is put in the 6-digit code, and we are good to go. We don't have to have a second step. Now, in theory, we could have a second step if we wanted to get additional information. So in that situation, that could just be a separate form that we have people go through. But personally, I think just keeping it thin is best. And then if you are in a product, you could just have people fill in some information as needed. So for example, you could have the lesson structure in some free lead magnet course, and then you could have a lesson like right here that's just a form to get their Instagram or other contact information such as their phone number. So this is a unique approach you don't see a lot, but basically embedding that form as part of the course structure. Or what you could do is you could kind of mask it as some kind of survey for your product. So for example, if I was helping people run ads or something, I might say, hey, what is your business? What's your target audience? What's your profiles? And I would have that as a form in the lessons. When they submit that, I could use that information to customize an offer for them and use it as a way to get a hold of them. So the whole idea here is, well, why would you even want to do that? It's because we're building an integrated experience. We have one place for people to go. That place acts as the lead magnet to gather the people's information. It's also the destination once they verify their account. They don't have to go anywhere else, so they can consume the lead magnet after they've put in their information there. And then we can ultimately have an upsell to extending the product, getting access to additional sections, so we don't have to send them to a completely separate product. That situation, we basically just have a free preview, which is acting as a lead magnet. And the last thing in there is you can embed any kind of forms or information you need to get from people and even have them book calls through Calendly directly. So all of this is done from a single page, which is your product. You just structure the lessons correctly so that it acts as a funnel. You have the lead magnet. To access it, you have to put in your information, which grants you access to this section here. And then once you buy, you can just unlock the rest of the material. So you have basically an intro to what the thing is, maybe some high-level overview of what you're going to cover, or maybe a roadmap, and then you deliver the full product. And it's a very natural flow from beginning to end. Now, Course Catalyst is built with traditional structures in mind as well, so you don't have to do this structure. You can do traditional multiple courses, multiple landing pages, connect everything together as you please. But I just think this can give a simplified experience for most people. I don't think having a more complex funnel is going to get people better results most of the time. I think usually the problem is they make it too complex and they don't know what to improve or change, because it's all over the place and you got marketing sloppy structures that you have to figure out how to manage. So that's what we want to avoid. And that is a tangent of what we were talking about. all coming back to the universal contact system where your contact information is your account. Additionally, we support custom attributes for the contact. So you could do pretty much whatever you want. If you need to store people's phone number in there, if you need to put their Slack information in there, or their Discord, or their user ID for some other platform, you can do all that stuff through automations to make connections. Because while I envision the contact being the core piece of Course Catalyst, it's just a matter of fact, some people are going to still use external systems and they need those integrations. That's something we're obviously going to be able to support integrating with other platforms. So maybe you use close.com as a CRM. That's how you're calling people and emailing people, and you want that to have a very clean flow from Close to Course Catalyst. We can easily set that kind of stuff up and utilize custom attributes if needed. So that is some of the reasoning and core ideas behind the way I designed the contact system. If you want to know how you can utilize this and use Course Catalyst to set up your very first funnel, I'll have a link to a free resource down below. It's an intro course that'll give you an overview of my funnel structure and how I build trust through that journey. And from there, at the end, there will be a call to action where we can go from there to see if it makes sense for you to work with me more closely, deploying your business on Course Catalyst. And then I can be there for the entire journey to make sure everything is set up properly, all the best recommended practices are being followed, and you get automated outcomes for your business, all on autopilot through the automated funnel. So we talk about funnels and stuff in all kinds of other videos, so you can check those out. But for now, hopefully this was helpful, kind of giving some background and insight to the way I approached my design. Now, if you enjoy this content, let me know. I don't do a lot of these. I want to know how often I should go into the details of my design choices versus just talking about some general concepts, because I don't want to make this channel like super technical and you have to know how everything works to use it, because Course Catalyst is super simple. That's my goal. I just want to make it easy to create a product. It's the whole idea behind the name. In chemistry, a catalyst will accelerate a chemical reaction. Well, with Course Catalyst, I want you to be able to create a course or some other lead magnet in a matter of minutes, not days. So we want to keep it very, very simple. Create a lead magnet, use automations to nurture and sell another product. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for some of the upcoming content. Please be sure to subscribe if you've made it this far, and I'll see you in the free lead magnet and in the next video. Peace out.